What exactly makes a human being valuable? In modern society, we often measure a person's worth by their physical abilities or their intellectual output, but tying our identity to performance creates a dangerous ethical standard. If value requires a fully functioning mind or a perfect physical form, then embryonic life, severe intellectual disability, and advanced dementia appear to bear a diminished image. To avoid that trap, historical theology has debated where to find our true identity. Should we look backward to the first Adam, focusing on our created nature? Or do we look entirely forward to Jesus Christ, focusing on our redeemed potential? Definitions that ignore our created nature leave the most vulnerable without a defense, stripping away the rights of those who cannot perform or produce. If we build our understanding of humanity entirely around the first Adam, we are left staring at a fractured blueprint. We define humanity by its broken, fallen state, leaving us with a deeply pessimistic view of human potential and no clear path to a redeemer. The opposite reaction comes from theologians like Karl Barth, who championed Christological exclusivism. He insisted that fallen humanity has absolutely nothing to teach us about our true nature, and therefore, human identity is disclosed exclusively in the person of Jesus. The first row of this table highlights the limitation of this exclusivist model. If we define true humanity exclusively through the person of Jesus, then the physical world and the original creation of Genesis lose their independent standing. Under this view, human beings who don't know Christ are seen only as the sinner rather than a creature, making it difficult to explain the universal conscience and moral responsibility shared by all people. Walter C. Kaiser Jr. offers a mediating framework in the bottom row, the Promise Plan synthesis. It argues that Adam supplies the foundational physical data of what it means to be human, our embodiment and social relationality, while Christ assumes, purifies, and fulfills that exact same blueprint. To understand who we are, we cannot sever our created origins from our redemptive destiny. Both horizons belong to one continuous, unfolding story. According to the ancient Hebraic worldview, humanity is not an unguided biological accident. We were inaugurated as an ensouled, embodied royal priesthood, specifically installed to steward the massive cosmic temple of creation. When the first humans rebelled, they fractured that sacred vocation. They introduced exile and mortality. But crucially, the fall did not annul their underlying design. The Imago Dei, the image of God, remained intact as an unalterable ontological identity. Because that original blueprint survived the fall, God did not abandon the physical project. He didn't scrap matter to start over with something purely spiritual. Any rescue mission would have to happen from within human nature itself. This brings us to the actual mechanics of the incarnation. To heal the human blueprint, concretist Christology affirms that the divine Son had to assume a specific body and a specific rational soul. Other models fall short of this comprehensive healing. Apollinarianism suggested Jesus had a human body but a divine mind, which would leave the human intellect unredeemed. Docetism claimed his body was just a phantasmal illusion, which denigrates material creation and empties the cross of its physical reality. The 4th century theologian Gregory of Nazianzus established a vital rule for this: that which is not assumed is not healed. If the Son of God did not take on a real human mind, our inner life remains broken. If he did not take on real flesh, our physical bodies remain doomed. The incarnation is an act of precise metaphysical engineering. Jesus maps perfectly onto the exact components Adam lost, healing the Imago Dei completely from the inside out. The Gospel of John makes this connection explicit by presenting a vivid literary pattern. When the authorities come to arrest Jesus, the narrative doesn't place him in a standard courtyard. The betrayal deliberately unfolds in a garden. During his trial, Jesus is crowned with thorns, the sign of the cursed ground from the first garden. After his crucifixion, he is buried in a garden tomb, leading Mary Magdalene to mistake the risen Christ for the gardener. The author wants us to see the true keeper of the garden stepping directly into the exact geographical and spiritual space where the first human failed, standing his ground and reversing the curse. As the last Adam, Christ assumed the full spectrum of human nature, a concrete body and a concrete soul. Because he took on our exact constitution, his passage through death reveals what happens to the human person during the intermediate state between biological death and resurrection. Biological death is simply the temporary separation of the concrete human soul from the concrete human body. While Jesus' body was placed in the tomb, his human soul remained personal and active, promising the penitent criminal they would be together in paradise that very day. Concretist Christology guarantees that our physical death is not the extinction of our personal identity. It is an unnatural period of disembodiment, while the core of who we are awaits reunification. The resurrection moved beyond a simple repair of Adam's broken blueprint. By ascending in a glorified physical body, the Son of God placed human nature at the very center of cosmic rule. This physical elevation grounds the doctrine of theosis. As we see in this table, the Church rejects essential deification, the idea that we become uncreated gods. Instead, through the incarnate Son, we participate relationally in the divine life, receiving immortality and holy love, without erasing the boundary between creator and creature. This physical ascension contradicts the widespread idea that salvation is an escape from the physical world into a disembodied heaven. The hope of human anthropology requires physical matter. Our ultimate destiny is the descent of the New Jerusalem upon a renewed earth. Here, ensouled, resurrected human beings, conformed to the last Adam, will finally take up the vocation given in the very first garden. The image of God isn't discarded, it is transfigured and put back to work.